Okay, so today we are diving deep into Emily Henry's 2025 novel, Great Big Beautiful Life. And look, for years, when you heard Emily Henry, you immediately thought, rom-com queen.
Absolutely. Beach reads, witty banter, that guaranteed happy ending.
Totally. But our sources are all saying that with this novel, Henry really took a big step, maybe a calculated one, away from that signature genre.
Yeah, she seems to have swapped the strict rom-com structure for something, well, heavier. It's more of a deep generational saga, but still with a romance thread woven through it. A much slower burn this time.
And what's amazing is how fast it took off, commercially speaking.
Right. Because usually when an author switches genres even a little bit, you sometimes see the audience hesitate. But not here. Great Big Beautiful Life, it debuted straight at #1 on the New York Times fiction bestseller list. That was right after it came out, April 22nd, 2025. Yeah, that kind of immediate success, it really suggests readers weren't just there for the genre, they were there for her voice. They trusted her enough to follow her into this darker, more complex story.
Exactly. And that idea of instant legacy, it's funny, that's kind of what the book itself is all about. So our mission today, let's unpack this shift, look at the rivalry between these two journalists, dig into the, decades of scandal around the heiress Margaret Ives, and this is a really juicy part, uncover the surprising real-world inspirations behind it all.
Okay, let's set the scene first, because the setup is just brilliant. The story focuses on Margaret Ives. She's this elusive octogenarian, right? Used to be a massive tabloid princess, totally famous.
Right.
But she vanished from the public eye years ago. Now she lives under a fake name, Irene, in this fictional seaside town in Georgia, Little Crescent. It sounds quite isolated.
Just, but isolated, yeah.
And then, seemingly out of the blue, Margaret decides, okay, time for my biography. And she invites two very different writers to basically compete for the chance to write it.
And this competition, it just sets up the whole tension of the book right from the get-go. So first, there's our protagonist, Alice Scott. Alice is like the viewpoint character. She's described as really optimistic, sunny, personable.
Kind of the classic Emily Henry heroine type, maybe.
Sort of, yeah. But professionally, she's writing what the sources call celebrity fluff pieces. This biography of Margaret Ives, though, it's the story of the century. It's her big shot, her big break.
But talk about pressure. The deck is stacked against her immediately. She walks into this thing, and who is she up against? Hayden Anderson, a renowned Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist.
Oh, wow.
Yes. The guy is the definition of established success. He's described as aloof, maybe a bit cynical, famous for this other big biography he wrote, Our Friend Lynn.
So he's the seasoned pro, the human thundercloud, I think one source called him.
Yeah, exactly. And Alice just feels totally understandably out of her depth.
And Margaret, who's clearly been manipulating the media for, 80 years? She just dials up the pressure instantly.
Totally. She gives them both access, but only for a 1-month trial period.
A trial. For a biography.
Yeah, basically an audition. She pays them both equally for the month, which is something, I guess.
Okay.
But here's the kicker. They both have to sign these super strict NDAs. And they are explicitly forbidden from collaborating. They can't even talk to each other about what they're finding out.
Wow. So she's deliberately pitting them against each other. Control and rivalry.
It's pure forced proximity. And it sets up that classic enemies to lovers dynamic straight away. The early part of the book is just crackling with that tension.
Right. Alice is the sunshine. Almost painfully optimistic sometimes.
And Hayden's the broad-shouldered grump brooding in the corner.
Yeah, their meetings are all sharp wit and barely concealed conflict. It's clear Henry's still playing with those romance tropes she's known for, even inside this bigger family saga.
Oh, definitely. The sources pointed out that one scene, you probably remember it.
The knee-bumping scene.
Yes. In the fishbowl bar booth, Alice, just being Alice, accidentally bumps knees with Hayden, who's really tall. And he doesn't just, brush it off. He dryly accuses her of trying to throw him off my game. Seriously, a knee bump.
Seriously, it tells you everything about him. He sees everything as a competition, as a strategic move. He's always on guard.
That professional cynicism, though, it runs deeper. Because Margaret isn't just playing them off each other romantically or competitively. She's testing their journalism, right? Or ethics.
Exactly. It's not just about who writes the prettiest sentences. Early on, Margaret kind of lays out the philosophical core of the whole book. She tells Alice, look, there are always 3 versions of any story. Yours, mine, and the truth.
Ooh, okay. Heavy.
Yeah. And then she asks Alice, point blank, basically.
Yeah.
Do you want my version, where I'm the hero and everything's neat? Or do you actually want, quote, the whole awful truth in black and white?
Wow. That just sets the stakes sky high right away.
You realize, okay, this isn't just about two people maybe falling for each other while writing a book. It's about honesty, legacy, the ethics of storytelling.
Exactly. And to really feel the weight of that awful truth, you need to understand the sheer scale of this Ives dynasty that Margaret comes from.
Right, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because Margaret isn't just some random rich old lady.
No way. She's generational royalty, in a sense. Her parents were Frederick Ives and Doris Bernhardt, and Doris Bernhardt was apparently a pioneering female film director back in the day.
Oh, interesting. So Hollywood connections too.
Big time. And Margaret herself, she's the heiress to this massive Ives media dynasty. This family's wealth and influence go back over a century.
So where did it start? The sources mentioned her great-grandfather.
Yeah, Lawrence Ives. He was the one who bought the San Francisco Daily Dispatch, apparently had some big falling out with his business partner, then basically built this huge national newspaper chain. That's where the original family fortune came from.
Old money media.
Exactly. And then the next generations diversified. Margaret's father, Frederick, he smartly took that newspaper money and pivoted into the booming film industry.
So connecting that old media power with new Hollywood glamour.
Precisely. Which means Margaret inherited not just a ton of money, but also this incredibly public, complicated history and, massive notoriety. She was the original tabloid princess, as they call her.
Right, and her own life story is just filled with tragedy and scandal, which explains why she eventually just disappeared.
Completely. She was married to this famous rock star, Cosmo Sinclair. The book calls him the poor man's Elvis. But he died in this horrific car crash. And that seems to be the catalyst, the thing that finally made her retreat from public life and go hide out on Little Crescent Island.
But there's more to it than just the grief, isn't there? The sources hinted at a lot more darkness in her past.
Oh, yeah. There's mention of a huge, decades-old scandal, a major public trial, and some kind of devastating accident, apparently all connected to her younger sister, Laura Ives.
Laura. Wasn't she the one involved with a cult or something?
That's the one, infamously involved with a cult. So you start to piece it together, and Margaret's eccentricity, her intense need for privacy, her living under a fake name, it all starts to make a chilling kind of sense.
Given the trauma and the media frenzy she must have endured.
Yeah. And the location itself, Little Crescent Island, it really feeds into that whole theme of escape and secrets.
That's a really good point about the setting. It feels like more than just a backdrop, especially the side of the island Margaret chooses to live on.
Right. It's described as atmospheric, isolated, kind of swampy. Her house is eccentric, and it's deliberately on the marshy side, away from the fancy millionaire mansions and the tourists.
Like a physical representation of her cutting herself off.
Exactly. A very deliberate retreat from the world she used to basically rule.
Okay, so let's shift a bit. Talk about the bigger picture here, the creative choices Henry made with this book.
Right. She actually talked about it publicly, acknowledging it was a mild departure.
Mild? Sounds pretty major.
Well, mild might be underselling it a bit, yeah. But she said she wanted to write a romance that felt broader. Meaning, the focus isn't just laser-focused on Alice and Hayden falling in love. There's a huge emphasis on familial love, too.
Yeah.
Especially the really deep, really complicated bond between Margaret and her sister Laura.
Okay.
And also, apparently, the relationship between Alice and her own mother, Angela, gets some significant airtime.
Okay, that makes sense for a broader scope. And a story this big, dealing with dynasties and legacy,
Yeah.
it needs some hefty real-world parallels to feel grounded, right?
Definitely. And Henry didn't just vaguely gesture at rich families. Sources say she drew direct inspiration structurally and tonally from these huge famous clans whose lives were just constant public spectacles.
Like who?
She specifically mentioned families like the British royals and the Kennedys, families where their private tragedies became massive public national events.
Right. That level of scrutiny.
And then, to build the actual Ives media dynasty, she looked at the history of real media empires. Think like the Hearsts or the Murdochs, families with that kind of genuine century-spanning power and influence.
Okay, so royals, Kennedys, Hearsts. That gives it weight. But wasn't there one really specific, almost surprising inspiration?
Yes. This is the real aha moment, I think. It's so smart. Henry specifically cited a Taylor Swift song.
No way, which one?
The Last Great American Dynasty.
Oh, okay, from folklore.
Yeah.
about Rebecca Harkness.
Exactly. Henry said it was a key touchstone, not just maybe for the title Great Big Beautiful Life, but for the whole tone and the central theme of the book.
That makes perfect sense because that song is all about Rebecca Harkness, this rebellious, misunderstood socialite whose entire identity was shaped by gossip and public perception, often really negative.
Precisely. And Margaret Ives is written as this direct literary echo of Harkness, a woman whose true self was just completely buried under that tabloid princess image.
It's kind of the perfect muse, isn't it? Because it immediately highlights the novel's central conflict, public image versus private reality. So Henry's using Margaret to explore these really heavy themes. Legacy, how identity gets constructed, what success even means.
Right, and ultimately what actually makes up a beautiful life when your every move has been watched and judged since the day you were born.
And clearly exploring those big questions struck a chord.
Yeah.
With readers and critics.
Oh, hugely. Beyond that #1 debut, it was a top national fiction seller right after release. And it got picked for Reese's Book Club.
Which basically guarantees it becomes a massive commercial hit.
Pretty much seals the deal, yeah. And the reviews were generally glowing. Critics called it a stunner. They really praised how the descriptions of Margaret's past felt, candid and poignant. It wasn't just sensationalism, it had real emotional depth.
And what about the romance part? Alice and Hayden.
That got singled out too. Even with all the heavy family drama and ethical dilemmas, their relationship was described as a delightful slow burn. So she still delivered on the romance front.
Okay, so successful genre shift, mostly. Now this format, journalist interviews reclusive, famous woman with a scandalous past. It sounds familiar.
Immediately, people made the comparison to The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
Right. That's a huge bestseller, too.
It's a very fair comparison structurally. The journalist uncovering the secrets of this legendary hidden figure. It definitely helps readers who liked Evelyn Hugo know what kind of narrative framework to expect.
But were there differences noted?
Yeah.
Because Henry's usual style feels maybe a bit different from Taylor Jenkins Reid's.
Yeah, some sources suggested readers actually preferred Henry's take here. Based on the reviews and critiques, it seems like Henry might lean a bit more into the ambiguity of the romance and maybe the messiness of the family stuff, rather than relying purely on those huge dramatic plot twists that often drive Evelyn Hugo.
Ah, okay. Evelyn Hugo's very twist-driven.
Right. Henry's focus here feels a bit slower, maybe more internal. Really examining the moral quandaries the journalists are facing, just as much as the big scandals in Margaret's past.
That makes sense. But, okay, it wasn't all perfect praise, right?
Yeah.
What were the main criticisms?
The main constructive points seem to center on structure, mostly. The biggest one was pacing.
Uneven pacing.
Some readers felt it was a bit uneven because the book jumps back and forth between the two timelines. You've got the present-day story, that intense, immediate competition between Alice and Hayden, and then you're switching to this sweeping, decades-long saga of Margaret's life.
I can see how that might feel a bit jarring sometimes.
Yeah, managing those two distinct narrative threads smoothly is always tricky. And the other main critique, it was actually about Alice.
Our protagonist. What was the issue?
Well, while everyone seemed to agree Margaret was this incredible, larger-than-life character, some felt Alice, despite being our main window into the story, came across as potentially a bit lacking.
Lacking how? Like underdeveloped?
Maybe just overshadowed. Despite her optimism and her drive, she sometimes struggled to really hold her own against the sheer force of Margaret's personality and history, and also against Hayden's brooding, intimidating competence.
So the romance worked, but maybe her individual journey felt a little secondary sometimes.
Perhaps her professional ambition was there, but maybe it got a bit lost next to the sheer scale of everything else happening.
Okay. So wrapping it all up, we've got this really tight, high-stakes professional rivalry happening right now.
Right, in the present day.
Set against this absolutely epic backdrop of tragedy, scandal, and media dynasty history spanning decades.
Yeah, and everything Henry throws at us, it keeps looping back to that fundamental question Margaret raises at the start about narrative control, about whose story gets told and what truth even means.
Right, that core tension never really lets up. It's the hunt for the real truth in Margaret's incredibly complicated, probably contradictory life story.
Put right alongside the professional and romantic rivalry between Alice and Hayden, it all comes down to Margaret's warning. Yours, mine, and the truth. 3 versions. And by forcing them to compete, Henry makes us, the readers, constantly question whose perspective, the optimistic newcomer or the cynical pro, is more likely to actually get us closer to that elusive third version.
Which leads us perfectly into our final thought for you, the listener. The book really makes Alice and Hayden grapple with their own ethics versus their ambition. So thinking about the weight of family history, how complex truth can be, Margaret's refusal to give easy answers if it were your life story up for grabs. And you had a Pulitzer winner like Hayden, cynical but established, and a charming newcomer like Alice, optimistic but maybe less experienced, both competing for the job. Whose approach, whose perspective would you ultimately trust to tell your whole honest story?